you sell items on eBay, shop online, or run a giant online business like Google, there are some important e-commerce laws that you should be aware of. Hi, I'm Professor Mark Grabowski, and this short video lecture will cover e-contracts, taxes, advertising, and other key laws related to e-commerce in America. First, let's cover e-contracts. In today's online-centered world, the use of e-contracts has become prevalent. If you use the internet regularly, even if it's just to check Gmail or peruse photos on Instagram, you've almost certainly entered into contractual agreements, whether you realize it or not. An electronic contract, or e-contract, is a binding agreement by means of a computer or other electronic or automated technology. For example, many online merchants enter into contracts with customers in which the merchant agrees to provide a product or service in exchange for the customer's payment. Parties can even agree to the transaction using an e-signature. But many e-contracts don't even involve the exchange of money or credit cards. Social media platforms and apps such as Facebook, Snapchat, and Instagram that don't charge a fee often require users to consent to their terms of service or terms of use, which cover a variety of terms from licensing agreements to privacy policies to choice of law in the event that there's a disagreement between the social media platform and the user. There are typically two types of e-contracts: click wrap and browser wrap agreements. Click wrap agreements require a user to affirmatively click on a box on the website acknowledging agreement to the terms of service, which are often available in a scrolling text box, before the user is allowed to proceed. Browser wrap agreements have a hyperlink term of use that are typically found on a separate web page, which the user does not have to visit to continue using the website or its services. Given that the terms usually involve an exchange of rights and obligations between a website owner and user, disputes often arise over the enforceability of such agreements. The enforceability of these agreements turns on whether the party had adequate notice of the terms of the agreement and thus agreed to be bound by them. Generally, courts have declined to enforce browser wrap agreements, but have routinely upheld click wrap agreements. Now let's talk about taxes. Have you ever noticed that you pay taxes on certain online purchases but not others? If an online business has a physical presence in a state with sales taxes, then it is required by law to collect sales taxes from customers. However, if the business doesn't have a physical presence, then collecting tax on purchases is not required. Next up is advertising. Controversial advertisements are okay, but false and misleading ads are prohibited. In addition, ads that promote discrimination or other illegal activities are also illegal. Websites and online ad services such as Google AdWords can be punished for accepting ads with illegal products, services, or activities. For example, in 2013, the FBI shut down a website called Silk Road, which was used as an online market for selling and buying illegal drugs. Finally, federal law places some limits on marketing via electronic communications such as email, texts, and phone calls. Basically, if you're a business that uses email or phone calls to advertise, you need to give people the option of opting out of your solicitations. Otherwise, you could face steep fines for spam. Okay, here's what you need to know about data protection. Online businesses frequently collect and store all kinds of personal information about their customers and website visitors, such as their name, address, billing information, and more. While certain industries, such as healthcare and banking, have laws regulating what info can be collected and how it can be shared, there are no general laws pertaining to data collection. But there are a couple exceptions. Websites are forbidden from collecting any personal information from anyone under the age of 13. Additionally, online businesses and websites must notify consumers when their personal information is stolen. Now let's talk about online reviews. If you've had a bad experience with a business, you can let the whole country know by posting a review online. In America, consumers are generally free to give businesses negative reviews online. Most reviews are protected under the First Amendment, free speech. However, a court can find a reviewer guilty of defaming a business if he or she posts a factually incorrect accusation that seriously damages the business's reputation. Freedom of speech typically boils down to whether someone is expressing their opinion or asserting a fact. So, if you post on Yelp that a restaurant has awful service and bad food, that's perfectly legal. Businesses sometimes try to sneakily insert fine print into forms or terms of service that bars consumers from giving them a bad review, but a 2016 federal law makes such clauses unenforceable. Antitrust laws have been around in America for over a century, but they are becoming a big legal issue in the internet age. Believe it or not, it's possible for an online business to become too successful. So successful that it's illegal. In free market economies like the United States, the government typically takes a hands off approach. But if a company becomes so powerful they develop a monopoly over the market, the government might step in and break up the company. In the internet age, Google, Apple, Facebook, and Amazon, or GAFA as they're sometimes collectively called, have accrued a tremendous amount of power and influence over their industries, and it makes serious competition from startups nearly impossible. For example, Google drives nearly 90% of internet search, and Amazon.com now accounts for nearly 80% of electronic book sales. Consequently, a growing number of consumer advocates and lawmakers think these tech giants need to be broken up or more heavily regulated. The legal test is whether a company's size leaves consumers worse off. Monopolies aren't always bad or illegal, but the US government has begun cracking down on some powerful tech companies that engage in anti competitive practices. For example, Microsoft barely escaped being split up in the early 2000s after it was ruled to have an unlawful monopoly over web browsing software. As consumers become more and more reliant on the internet and tech giants become more powerful, expect the regulation debate on Capitol Hill to heat up. Finally, in the internet age, businesses are increasingly interacting with people all over the world. Be aware that we've only covered the key laws for e-commerce in America. Each nation has its own set of expectations and standards when it comes to e-commerce. In some cases, other nations have much more strict laws, so before doing business overseas, do your own research. Once again, this has been Professor Mark Grabowski. Thanks for watching.